When you hear these people talking about fee for service and value based, they're morons. And all they have is a bunch of talking points. And they
Yeah.
keep circling around the same talking point, throwing it in ChatGPT, publishing it on a LinkedIn profile, and thinking that they're geniuses.
And
That's not
yeah,
the problem. The problem is we haven't answered the fundamental questions. How much do we invest in our children? How do we finance it? And how do we find a pay for it? No one wants to have that conversation.
correct.
It's a real conversation. Annie, I was going to ask you one more question. All right. What is the disadvantage of a duopoly health system in a community?
It's actually, so I've seen this. So I came here for undergrad and I've been here ever since. All right. So I did my medical school here, residency here. So I've seen the system here in town for a good 3 decades or so. And it's been interesting to watch it. I wouldn't even call it a duopoly anymore. It's more of a 1.5-opoly because go back 20 or 30 years ago, I would say it was a duopoly. And honestly, that had advantages, to tell you the truth, because there was the ivory tower and there was that hospital system and they had their staff, they had their specialists, they had their clinics. And then we had the community-based system. They had their main hospital. They had a couple of side hospitals. They had their set of specialists, et cetera, that kind of thing. But they each had a lane. And the ivory tower did a lot of the specialized care, the cutting edge stuff, the research, that type of thing. In the community hospital did the bread and butter. So back 20 years ago, when I first came into practice, if I had a kid who, it was 10 p.m., they call me on the phone and the mom was like, he's having an asthma attack. I would often tell them, go to the community hospital emergency room. They had a fantastic, as pediatric residents, we rotated through both. The community hospital had a smaller peds program, a smaller PEDS, but they were fantastic at what they did. But they had a smaller floor than the academic hospital did. But for your fractures, your appendicitis, your asthma exacerbations, they were fantastic at that stuff. They stayed in their lane and they did it well. And the academic hospital stayed in their lane and they did it well. So actually the duopoly, I think that fondly, because it really worked. Somewhere over the last 10 or 20 years, but they both tried to start to eat each other's lunch. They both got out of their lanes, and the community hospital tried to get into more specialized care. And the academic hospital tried to get more into the bread and butter and like take things over and stuff like that. So what had been an understanding turned into a competition in a sense. And truly from what I see, once again, I mentioned this before, I'm not in the room where it happens. So I'm sure there's a lot going on behind closed doors over this last decade or two that I'm not privy to. But as the outside observer, it seems to me that the main hospital system, the academic system, is slowly but surely pretty much taking things over.
But that's had some real world implications, right? So at dinner last night, we are talking about screening kids for diabetes.
Yeah.
And there's no LabCorp and no Quest in Rochester. So you have no options.
Mm-hmm.
If the big health system doesn't decide to do the test to screen for diabetes, the kids don't get access to care. And because there's no competition, no one does it. Everybody else in the country can just go to their Quest office or LabCorp office and get it done. And I'm sure there's many examples of the same because there's no competition. The big hospital says, what do I care if I'm going to screen for kids for diabetes or not? That doesn't really make money for me. Neurosurgeon makes money for me. Cardiovascular makes money for me. Orthopedics makes money for me. Cancer care makes money for me. Why should I even be bothered by that? And that closes access.
Yeah.
It's not good medicine.